I've literally just finished the movie about 10 minutes ago. So it's very, very fresh in my mind. I thought it was brilliant. A really, really good piece of cinema. So it's a shame. I could tell it would be great on the big screen, obviously, with all the great cycling shots, but you know, what can you do?
that's what's killing us, to be honest, you know, because I wanted people to feel like they were right in the middle of the peloton on the bike, you know, and when you're in a cinema, a big screen, it does that, you know, but this is the world we live in at the moment, you know.
Well, I'll start with you, Kieran. I'm just wondering sort of what it was, I mean, that made this particular story. What was it that made you think, right, that's going to be my next project?
I read like there was a short film idea, which was basically one of the scenes in the film that the original writer wrote, Ciaran Cassidy. And it was the intrigue of the character, actually. It was the idea of telling a story of somebody who plays second fiddle, you know, somebody who never gets the opportunity for glory, really, and the only kind of praise he gets is within the world of the team or within the peloton. And I kind of thought I'd never seen that before. It's normally the champion or the real underdog, but never somebody who helps the champion to maintain the status. And also, so it takes a particular kind of man or person to be satisfied with that for their lives, that they're going to always play second fiddle. And back then, in 22 years ago, it would have been even less attention to domestiques than there is now. So I found that intriguing. And also the idea of a guy sports people who get to a certain time in their lives, and then they kind of think, well, what am I going to do next? And we've seen tragic stories of real champions like George Best and Paul Gascoigne and people like that. And this has just happened to be, and Pantani, even the guy who won the Tour de France in '98, Pantani died of a cocaine overdose in his hotel room and wasn't found for 3 days, you know, so tragedy, you know what I mean? And I was interested in that, you know.
Yeah, no, you're so good. It's so true. I didn't really realize thinking that when I was watching it, but it's right. Usually when you see any story like this, you always go in through the entry point of the main guy, the sort of the leader of the pack. So yeah, but Louis, I mean, this is a fantastic, as Kieran was just saying, it's a great role, isn't it? As an actor, you know, you must stumble across scripts, and you must have got this one and thought, this has given me so much to work with. It must be a real dream for you to get into a character like this.
The script came in through my UK agents. And I just straight away said, after reading, I said, guys, I need to play this part. So just please put me in touch with this director. Let me talk to him. Let me sort of try to charm my way into the script. I mean, Kieran made me read, and then we just talked about the script and about, you know, the passion I have for the bike and the understanding of the character that I had. And I think we very quickly hit it off. Through everything that Kieran says is sort of the way that this character sort of dedicates his life to sports and to be a winner. That's what's given me so much as an actor to play with.
But I was going to ask Louis as well about, I mean, obviously, you know, there's shots of you in the movie where you're just sort of wearing your underwear. And I mean, the physique you had to get yourself into, it's not like a regular kind of training, I'm assuming, for this, because you had to there's a very specific type of shape and body that cyclists have. How challenging was it to get into that exact kind of physicality for this role?
It was challenging because, I mean, you know, generally I'm a sporty guy and I'm always in quite a decent shape. And I remember myself saying to Kieran, like I was saying, Kieran, I will get skinny, don't worry. Because we had a meeting just before Kieran and the producers offered the job to me. And I think one of the last things I said, I will get skinny, I will lose the weight, because he saw me and you know, even though I'm in shape, I have a bigger sort of chest and I have bigger biceps. And I'm just not generally on a 7% body fat percentage, because that's what Tour de France riders of today and back in those days need to be at. So I think I lost about 10 kilos, and it's not a strict diet that I followed. I mean, you know, losing weight, it varies from person to person. You can either say, I'm going to just only eat this and then lose so many kilos. But for me, it happened through doing a lot of sports and then eating just the right kind of things to fuel my body to keep on doing these endurance sports. And to lose 10 kilos, I've never felt fitter. I've never had more energy. And I recall myself asking Kieran 15 times on the first shooting day, do I look skinny? Do I look skinny?
It's true. Actually, the other thing that was, which we did, because Louis had been had a very specific diet, which was mostly protein. I remember taking him out to dinner a couple of times, and it would just be a steak. There'd be nothing with it, like no sauce, nothing like that, just a lean steak, no alcohol. I was drinking and I was having a ball, like, it was all in production, so I didn't care, like, but and then when we got to the actual to the set to start to shoot, he said, Louis, or beforehand, Louis said, is there any chance we could do some of the scenes where I'm kind of like, training, and the scenes that you're talking about where you can see his physique on the bike and looking in the mirror and like, trying to find something to pinch. And I said, absolutely. He says, because, I'm now at 7% body fat, gone from 15 to 7%. And I'd really like to eat something. So that's what we did. And so we captured those at the very beginning of the shoot,
Yeah. So yeah, I was just going to say, did you treat yourself to like a nice big pint of Guinness when the shoot was over or something? What was your first go-to kind of, right, it's done now, what am I going to treat myself to?
I'll be very honest. Kieran was so kind to me to shoot everything that I had to look the skinniest in the first 3 weeks when we shot in Luxembourg. And we moved to Ireland. And I remember the last week that we were shooting, I think 3 times I went to McDonald's, which was just down the road from our hotel, after like a long shooting day. And I was so hungry. And I was always trying to, because I had the PA that was sort of always bringing me my food during lunch. She always came and brought me eggs and yogurt and apples, and I was so tired of it. So every evening I went and cheated on her because she was really dedicated to Louis is an actor, he needs to have his healthy food. And every evening from that last week, because I knew I didn't have to be topless.
I didn't know this, Louis. This is news to me.
But so I treated myself to steaks and to beers and candy.
Sounds like me on a hangover, to be honest.
But it was beautiful, and I mean, I actually finished an Ironman 2 months later in Barcelona, and I remember texting Kieran saying, "Thank you for letting me be in this movie, for being so skinny, because the weight loss gives you so much more energy and speed on any other thing in sports in life." But I mean, in general, I just love this character, so I was just so grateful that Kieran offered it to me.
We did have a couple of Guinnesses though in Dublin. We did definitely.
Because Kieran, I was going to say, I mean, obviously, Louis, you used the word endurance, so it is an endurance sport. And I'm just wondering, when you're dealing, Kieran, with kind of characters and a kind of set which is delving into people that give everything for something, and they have this kind of never say die attitude where they will not quit at any cost. Is that a kind of spirit that rubs off on the movie set and on the people sort of around you? Because I guess on a movie set, there'll be times when it feels like the road is so far ahead, but when you kind of got a storyline which is so much about that kind of psychological push, did that kind of inform the set, the spirit on set, do you think?
Well, it certainly informed my attitude to making this film. And one of the, when I first got involved in the film, I didn't really know an awful lot about cycling. I was very familiar with the fact that the tour came to Ireland in '98. I was living here at the time, and I had first-hand experience watching it and stuff like that. But I knew nothing really, I didn't know the ins and outs of it. There was a couple of star riders I knew of. Didn't even realize that it was a team sport for individuals, but I just thought it was everybody gets on the bike and who's ever the fastest, But so what my key into this film really, and this character was, I compared it to being a film director, to being a kind of a film director insofar as, you never know when your next film is going to come along or if it's going to come along. And, films, I'm talking about films rather than television. So if you manage to get a film off the ground, you're thrown into a situation where you're in with a bunch of people who you don't really know. And, you've got to get to know them very quickly, and you're on tour, essentially. You might be away from home, shooting abroad. You have 3 months between prep and shooting. And then all of a sudden those people fall away and you go into post-production. And then you don't know when you're going to do this again. And I kind of compared it to being like a tour rider. You do it once a year. If you're lucky, you'll get to do the tour. You might get to do a Giro or a Vuelta or something, or you know what I mean. But it's always, especially when you get to that age in your late 30s, you just think, when is the last one? When is the last one? And so I found myself identifying with the character quite strongly. Now the difference obviously is that you have to be quite physically fit to direct a film. but it isn't. You don't have to be like a. You're not riding up mountains and you're pushing boulders up mountains trying to get the film made, but you're not. You don't have to be physically fit like the way you do in cycling. So that was my, and I hope I think it did permeate down through the team, the crew and stuff. And I know that Louis himself, in the boot camp that we ran a 10-day boot camp with actors and some amateur cyclists. And the idea was to get them to look like, and to look like cyclists on bikes and professional cyclists on bikes, but also to get them used to riding in a pack, riding close to each other, because it's actually quite nerve-wracking, because one little tip of a wheel and you're gone, you know. So that was the idea of the boot camp. And Louis actually became, because he knows how to cycle and knows how to do this stuff naturally, he became kind of the domestique of the boot camp, and got them all, put them all into shape with our technical advisor Paul McQuaid.
Nice dog, by the way, Louis.
Yes, thanks. Well.
Because I was going to ask, I mean, Kieran, you've sort of admitted that you weren't necessarily a huge fan or too knowledgeable about cycling, but Louis, did you have a kind of already an established interest in this as a sport?
My love for cycling, I think, started about in the year 2000, 2002. The transition from Johan Museeuw, who was one of our great classic riders, and then Tom Boden came, Philippe Gilbert, Cancellara. Obviously, being Belgian, I'm very familiar with Tour de Flanders, Paris-Roubaix. Actually, in 1998, I just recall the news items of the Festina boys crying, Richard Virenque with his yellow hair, like, oh, pretending they didn't do anything. But I was familiar with it, and Kieran and I, we visited the team of Quickstep, who now hosts Alaphilippe and the world champion jersey. We went to see a race. We went to the team bus. So I do know a few top cyclists personally myself. And I think it gave me a slight advantage to play this role, because I cycle quite a lot of kilometers yearly myself, and I know the hardship of it. So I think
this role was made for you, mate. This role was made for you.
Yeah.
Really it was. It was it's amazing because you're a great actor and you're also just so physically perfect for the part. I got very lucky, very lucky.
I mean, we both got very lucky to be working with each other, because also people, I think, can compliment me on the fact that we did a good performance with the film, or I look like a cyclist, but you cannot perform. We had maybe 5-6 cycling scenes, and the rest is just it's telling a story. And the beauty that I noticed in Irish people and with Kieran is that the Irish are such good storytellers. And I think Kieran as a director is somebody who gives you freedom, but many times when he came to me, he said this and this and this and this and this, and such valuable points were made to make the scenes better, which is something I really need, because I do really always want to listen to the person that directs me and to try different entries to the scene. So other than looking physically ready for the film and being happy to be on the bike and sort of giving my co-stars the confidence to be on the bike next to me and to be braking in fast, riding fast, the confidence you need to do a good performance is mainly with your director and your I have it with the name, not the cameraman, but the
cinematographer.
Yes, cinematographer. So that for me is key.
Yeah, I was going to ask Louis, as someone who obviously has got such a big interest in sort of cycling as a sport, has the sort of doping scandals chipped away at your investment at all? Because I've got a couple of friends who've effectively almost given up on the sport because it seems so widespread. I'm just wondering about if that's affected you as a fan at all, that all of the scandals.
I'm one of those hopeless romantics that will always believe, I believe what they do, and maybe he took something, but still, it's stupid to compare with Lance Armstrong, because he's not been the nicest guy to his team and to people that accuse him. But the guy was a fucking good cyclist. And you don't win it 7 times against other people that took doping as well if you're not pretty damn good. So I think the beautiful point about this film is that we don't judge it. Dom is, I think, when Kieran was telling me about the previews, so we had test views of the film. Everybody loved Dom as a character. They had sympathy for him. So even though Dom is an actual doper and he's cheating, they still think he's sympathetic. So for me, the romantic aspect of cycling in these days or back in those days, I wouldn't lose it straight away because I just love the sport too much, and I know it's too damn hard to not have trained to perform.
Yeah, well, I like the hopeless romantics. I think
Yeah.
keep it going. So my final question is to you, Kieran. Obviously, as Louis said, the Irish are fantastic storytellers. So I wondered what story you're going to be telling next.
Well, again, you know, you never know until you're standing on the set and you're going action, and even then it could fall apart. But and a couple of friends of mine have been in that situation, believe it or not. You know, where they've been on the set and like 2 weeks later, the money's fallen apart. But I'm currently working on an adaptation of a book called Skin Town, which is the story of two kids who deal ecstasy in Northern Ireland in the 90s before the ceasefire. So they're dealing drugs under the noses of the paramilitaries. And it's a buddy movie, slightly comedic, but also quite serious, you know, so it's got a lot going for it.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Yeah. You need to get a cyclist involved in there somewhere so Louis can get his part. But thank you so much for your time today, guys. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you both, and best of luck with the release. It's a shame it's not getting the big screen release, but I'm just pleased it's still out there and people are going to get the chance to see it. So
yeah. Well, thank you very much for having us on. And
it was a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!